This past July, the Intellivision community lost one of its greats, Carl Mueller Jr. He was a pioneer in Intellivision emulation as well as Homebrew, making him one of the founding fathers of that group, which we all enjoy to this day. This week, in honor of Carl, I'll be reviewing the games that he's probably best known for, the DK series. Welcome to Mike's Gaming Gala. I'm Mike, and this week we're reviewing not one, not two, but 3 games for the Intellivision. DK Arcade, D2K, and D2K Special Edition, programmed by Carl Mueller Jr. and published by Elektronite and Homebrew Inc. DK Arcade and D2K are still available as physical copies, but D2K Special Edition is not. That said, all 3 of these are still available as digital packages with ROMs from Elektronite. Contact elektronite@hotmail.com for information. All 3 of these games are in professionally printed gatefold boxes with a manual, overlays, and of course a new injection molded cartridge. Full disclosure, I suck at Donkey Kong, and yet I slaved hours upon hours to get you all the footage for this review. I did it for Carl, and I hope you enjoy. Let's start at the beginning with DK Arcade. Firing up your console, we get a nice title screen with an awesome rendition of our titular ape. Options here are to play a 1 or 2 player game, choose which character we play as, more on that later, and which game we want to play, 1 or 2. Game 1 is a US format of the arcade, and Game 2 is the Japanese format. I'll explain the difference as we play, but let's just say I think the Japanese had it right. Note that this release of the game differs from the earlier Donkey Kong Arcade, which was the previous build. This one fixes some bugs, has a working high score, as well as the American-Japanese choice is exclusive to this version. Starting Game 1, what we get is a massive improvement over the sorry excuse for Donkey Kong that was presented to Intellivision owners back in the early 80s. It looks the part, it sounds the part, and it plays wonderfully. Not that I do it any justice on that last point. One thing that Donkey Kong fans will notice right off the bat is that Donkey Kong, or Darwin as he's called here, is perched at the top right, whereas in the arcade game he's on the left. This is because one of the girders leading up to him has been removed, likely due to the limitations of the system. On the right of the playfield is, from top to bottom, your score, the amount of lives you have left, and finally the timer for each level. That's right, each level has a timer. You won't have to worry about this too much, but especially in later levels and later versions of the game, you might get caught waiting for the perfect opportunity. You can run out of time. I'm not really going to go too much into how to play Donkey Kong. Really, if you've ever played a game in your life, you should be familiar with the good old move with the disc and jump with the button mechanic. But it's worth noting that you jump either directly up or on a fixed arc in either direction. For people used to the more modern flexibility of being able to steer your jumps mid-air, you will be very disappointed. You'll have to have a good idea of this arc and time your jumps just right in order to have any success with this. As you play, you'll see hammers. Grabbing one of these allows you to destroy enemies that you hit. When you have one of these, you can't jump or climb ladders, at least not with Mario, so I tend to avoid them unless they're absolutely needed. At the end of a stage, you'll get 100 points for every second you have left on the timer, and at 10,000 points, you'll gain an extra life. You only get 1 though, so use it wisely. There are 4 screens in DK Arcade, matching the source material. In Game 1, you have to play multiple cycles of these screens, with a new one being added each time in order to see them all. So first, you play the barrels screen, then the rivets level. Then you return to the barrel screen, moving to the elevator level, and then progressing to the rivet level again. Then, finally, you get to play all 4 stages in a row. Barrels, then the pie factory, the elevators, and finally the rivets. Each time you loop back to the barrel stage, the stages get harder, with different movement and more fire to get in your way. As someone who really just wanted to show all the screens and isn't good at the game, This was a very frustrating way to do it. Thankfully, Game 2 is the Japanese order of levels, which makes so much more sense to me. In Game 2, the screens are identical to their American counterparts. However, the order is much more forgiving for those of us who want to be able to see everything. The Japanese order is simple. Move through each stage, barrels, pie factory, elevators, and rivets in order without any duplication of levels before looping back through them. This way, if you can manage to beat 4 stages in a row, you'll have seen everything that DK has to offer, aside from the increased difficulty levels. Much different to the 9 required in Game 1. Let's quickly look at all 4 screens here in more detail. The first is the classic, the barrel screen. This is a straight-up dodge the barrels situation. Move up the ladders when you get an opening and jump over incoming barrels. I find that waiting near the top for Darwin to take a break or throw a barrel straight down gives you that little bit of extra time to climb the last ladder and get to your special lady. Don't forget to watch out for the flame that's chasing you through this one. It can be aggressive sometimes. The second screen is the pie factory. That may sound delicious, but these are concrete pies, and trust me, you want nothing to do with them. The 3 main platforms here are conveyor belts, so when on them, you'll have to be constantly moving. Also, at the top, there's a retracting ladder that you'll have to climb at the right time to get up. Sometimes this level is easy, other times the fire can really screw you over, camping out by the ladder you need to progress. Just do your best to avoid the fire, and you should be okay. Screen 3 is the elevator stage. Not gonna lie to you, I hate stages like this, as your jumps have to be bang on every time, and there generally isn't a lot of leeway for you. That said, the fire is the most difficult part here. Get to the top of your platform and wait for the flame to move down. Then jump to the elevator and immediately again onto the platform. Then, with the next elevator, you'll want to do the same 2 quick jumps to get to the upper platform to the right of you. Once here, you can hop over and climb the ladder. You'll be safe at the top, then once a spring passes you, position yourself just to the left of the final ladder before making your move. Last but not least is the rivet stage. Here, the goal isn't just to climb up to your woman, but rather to defeat Darwin once and for all. Each of the 3 platforms here has a rivet on either side of it. Simply walk or jump over all 6 of these rivets and the center of the structure will collapse, giving Darwin a good concussion before looping back to do it all over again. I don't really have much in the way of tips here, just be as fast as you can and try not to get trapped in the top corners. Finally, before we get to the other 2 games here, we should talk about the 3 brothers. Mario is the standard experience. He moves at a normal speed, he has normal jumping, and he can't jump or climb ladders with the hammer. Tony is the acrobat of the family. He's faster and he jumps further. In fact, he jumps so well, he can even jump while holding the hammer. In many cases, Tony's my guy. You can really whip around a level with him. Bruno is the oldest of the 3 brothers. We usually don't talk about Bruno, but in the interest of being complete, Bruno is the big boy of the family. He's slower than both Tony and Mario, but he's strong. He can survive falls better than the other 2, and he can even climb ladders with the hammer. Note that while he's climbing, the hammer isn't swinging, so you still have to be careful if you try it. Alright, that's DK Arcade. Time to move on to D2K. I'll give my thoughts on all 3 of these games at the end of the video altogether. Starting it up, we see a very similar title menu to DK Arcade. But now our pal Darwin is holding up 2 fingers and the title is D2K. Here we have the same options as we did before with 1 or 2 players, as well as the choice of Mario, Tony, or Bruno. Game 1 in D2K is the American layout of the levels from DK Arcade, so we won't go through those again. However, Game 2 is completely different, with a mix of screens from Jumpman Returns, as well as new exclusive screens for the Intellivision. Stage 1 is an exclusive screen, Twisted Girders, where you've got to make it to the top, dodging barrels coming at you from both directions. This by itself isn't too bad, really. But the fact that the oil barrel is up there in the middle of the playfield means that you'll likely have to contend with fire on your way. Incredibly rude, but manageable once the fire moves down a bit. Stage 2 is the mixer. The conveyor belt here isn't a constant movement, but stops every time a plate lines up with the mixer. You'll have to be careful to time your movement in this section, but once you pass it, it's pretty easy going. Jump over the mixer when it's down, and then make sure to avoid the falling cement when you jump at the top left. After that, you'll have to tackle the barrel stage from the original game before advancing to what is probably my favorite screen, the refinery. Here, there are no barrels, no super complicated pressured jumps, and the fire is contained to 2 sections. Avoiding the white bursts that emit from the oil drums at the bottom, use the elevator in the middle to navigate to each of the platforms and walk over the blue blocks along the oil pipes. The bottom 2 blocks on the left and the top 2 blocks on the right are safe from fire. For the last 4 blocks, you'll have to avoid the fire. The top left flame is pretty easy to dodge, but depending on where the one is at the bottom right, it can sometimes be tricky. Once you've cleared them all, the flames at the top will be extinguished. Climb up and get to your lady. Next is the triple elevators, another exclusive screen. This one is a pain. Line up and time your jumps perfectly to land on the platforms, avoid the flames, and avoid the springs. Worst part? If you accidentally jump a bit too far to get to the last platform, you'll bounce off the edge of the screen and back into danger. Super annoying, so be careful. Once you do get across though, simply climb to the top and use the same positioning as in the other spring level to get to where you need to be. Then you'll get your chance to knock Darwin out with a rivet screen, before looping back to do it all again on a harder difficulty. Now there is one more level, but unfortunately, it doesn't turn up until you're on your 3rd loop. It's called the Eliminator, and it sounds cool, but there's no way in hell I'm making it that far. So for now, we'll just have to imagine its awesomeness. Okay, now that we've covered D2K, we're on to our last game, D2K Special Edition. Once again, we see a very familiar menu with the usual options. Game 1 here is the same as Game 2 from D2K, so we're interested in Game 2, which contains all 4 screens from Jumpman Returns. Here, even before we get to any gameplay, things look different, with both the intro and the how high can you get screen being unique to this version. Now to the bad part. The first stage in this version of the game is the absolute worst. I'd love to see the thought process that figured, you know how precision jumping in Donkey Kong is really frustrating? Let's make a level that requires you to do it 40 times in a row and then make that the first stage. Ugh. Anyhow, this is the Foundry, and yes, it absolutely sucks. Especially considering the last tricky jump can easily result in one of those edge bounces that'll throw you back to your doom. That said, at least there aren't any barrels here. No tips for this one, it's as straightforward as it looks, I just hate it. After that mess, we get a few familiar stages. First is some barrels as a palate cleanser, and then right into the refinery for some oil blocking fun. After that, we're back to the pie factory before coming across a brand new screen, the incinerator. The incinerator has a central fire pit at the bottom of the playfield with 2 layers of conveyor belts dropping items to burn. The key to this level is the purple hearts. Each heart you pick up adjusts the positions of the platforms on the red ropes. You have to collect enough of them to get the right red platform all the way to the top. Sadly, one of these hearts will always show up around the fireballs on the right. Sometimes things work out fine. Sometimes you get screwed. I wish I had more for you than that, but you kind of just have to pick your moment and go for it. When jumping on the red platforms, they'll sink, so when it gets to the top, you'll have to do 2 quick jumps in order to get across. Not a big deal unless you're not expecting it. Then, to wrap things up, we have our triple elevators, the mixer, and finally the rivets. Dropping Darwin on his head advances you to the second round to do it all over again. Because now, apparently, the stupid Foundry needs fireballs. Once again, the Eliminator is a level you can play on your third loop through. And especially here, I'm never gonna get there. And that is DK Arcade, D2K, and D2K Special Edition for the Intellivision. A trio of triumphs from Carl Mueller Jr. You don't need to be a Donkey Kong fan to acknowledge how well made these are. And if you are a DK fan, these are absolute must-haves. Now, unless you're a collector, you don't actually need D2K if you have DK Arcade and D2K Special Edition, as everything it has is also on the other two. These are great games, I'm happy to have them, and I'm sure you would be too, if you don't already. Highly recommended. Thank you for watching my video, I hope you liked it, and thank you so much to my channel members. I appreciate your support so much. As always, my contact info is in the description, and we'll see you next time on Mike's Gaming Gala.